Then he said, "I'm arresting you for assaulting a police officer." This made me feel a lot calmer, because it's what policemen say on television and in films. Then he said, "I strongly advise you to get back in the police car, because if you try any of that monkey business again, I'll seriously lose my rag. Is that understood?" I walked over to the police car, which was parked just outside the gate. He opened the back door and I got inside. He climbed into the driver's seat and made a call on his radio to the policewoman, who was still inside the house. He said, "He's just had a pop at me, Kate. Can you hang on with Mrs. S while I drop him off at the station? I'll get Tony to swing by and pick you up." And she said, "Sure, I'll catch you later." The policeman said, "Okie doke," and we drove off. The police car smelt of hot plastic and aftershave and takeaway chips. I watched the sky as we drove towards the town centre. It was a clear night and you could see the Milky Way. Some people think the Milky Way is a long line of stars, but it isn't. Our galaxy is a huge disk of stars, millions of light years across, and the solar system is somewhere near the outside edge of the disk. When you look in direction A at 90 degrees to the disk, you don't see many stars. But when you look in direction B, you see lots more stars because you are looking into the main body of the galaxy, and because the galaxy is a disk, you see a stripe of stars. And then I thought about how for a long time scientists were puzzled by the fact that the sky is dark at night, even though there are billions of stars in the universe, and there must be stars in every direction you look. So the sky should be full of starlight because there is very little in the way to stop the light reaching Earth. Then they worked out that the universe was expanding, that the stars were all rushing away from one another after the Big Bang, and the further the stars were away from us, the faster they were moving, some of them nearly as fast as the speed of light, which was why their light never reached us. I like this fact. It's something you can work out in your own mind by looking at the sky above your head at night and thinking without having to ask anyone. And when the universe had finished exploding, all the stars will slow down, like a ball that has been thrown into the air, and they will come to a halt, and they will all begin to fall towards the centre of the universe again. And then there will be nothing to stop us seeing all the stars in the world, because they'll all be moving towards us gradually faster and faster. And we will know that the world is going to end soon, because when we look up into the sky at night, there'll be no darkness, just the blazing light of billions and billions of stars, all falling. Except that no one will see this, because there'll be no people left on Earth to see it. They'll probably have become extinct by then, and even if there are people still in existence, they will not see it because the light will be so bright and hot that everyone will be burnt to death, even if they live in tunnels. Chapters in books are usually given the cardinal numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on. But I've decided to give my chapters prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13 and so on, because I like prime numbers. This is how you work out what prime numbers are. First, you write down all the positive whole numbers in the world. Then you take away all the numbers that are multiples of 2. Then you take away all the numbers that are multiples of 3. Then you take away all the numbers that are multiples of 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and so on. The numbers that are left are the prime numbers. The rule for working out prime numbers is really simple, but no one has ever worked out a simple formula for telling you whether a very big prime number is a prime number, whether a very big number is a prime number, or what the next one will be. If a number is really, really big, it can take a computer years to work out whether it's a prime number. Prime numbers are useful for writing codes, and in America they're classed as military material, and if you find one over 100 digits long, then you have to tell the CIA, and they buy it off you for £10,000. But it would not be a very good way of making a living. Prime numbers are what's left when you have taken all the patterns away. I think prime numbers are like life. They are very logical, but you could never work out the rules, even if you spent all your time thinking about them. When I got to the police station, they made me take the laces out of my shoes and empty my pockets at the front desk, in case I had anything in them that I could use to kill myself, or escape or attack a policeman with. The sergeant behind the desk had very hairy hands, and he had bitten his nails so much that they bled. This is what I had in my pockets. Number 1. A Swiss Army knife with 13 attachments including a wire stripper and a saw and a toothpick and tweezers. Number 2. A piece of string. Number 3. A piece of a wooden puzzle, which looked like this. 3 pellets of rat food for Toby, my rat. £1. Number 5. £1.47. This was made up of £1 coin, a 20p coin, 2 10p coins, a 5p coin and a 2p coin. Number 6. A red paperclip. And number 7. A key for the front door. I was also wearing my watch, and they wanted me to leave this at the desk as well, but I said that I needed to keep my watch on because I needed to know exactly what time it was. And when they tried to take it off me, I screamed, so they let me keep it on. They asked me if I had a family. I said I did. They asked me who my family was. I said it was father, but mother was dead. And I said it was also Uncle Terry, but he was in Sunderland, and he was father's brother. And it was my grandparents too, but 3 of them were dead, and Grandma Barton was in a home because she had senile dementia, and thought I was someone on television. Then they asked me for father's phone number. I told them that he had 2 numbers, one for at home, and one which was a mobile phone, and I said both of them. It was nice in the police cell. It was almost a perfect cube, 2 metres long by 2 metres wide by 2 metres high. It contained approximately 8 cubic metres of air. It had a small window with bars. On the opposite side, a metal door with long thin hatch near the floor for sliding trays of food into the cell, and a sliding hatch higher up, so that policemen could look in and check that prisoners hadn't escaped or committed suicide. There was also a padded bench. I wondered how I would escape if I was in a story. It would be difficult because the only things I had were my clothes and my shoes, which had no laces in them. I decided that my best plan would be to wait for a really sunny day and then use my glasses to focus the sunlight on a piece of my clothing and start a fire. I would then make my escape when they saw the smoke and took me out of the cell. And if they didn't notice, I'd be able to wee on the clothes and put them out. I wondered whether Mrs. Shears had told the police that I'd killed Wellington, and whether when the police find out that she'd lied, she'd go to prison, because telling lies about people is called slander. I find people confusing. This is for 2 main reasons. The first main reason is that people do a lot of talking without using any words. Siobhan says that if you raise one eyebrow, it can mean lots of different things. It can mean I want to do sex with you, and it can also mean I think that what you just said was very stupid. Siobhan also says that if you close your mouth and breathe out loudly through your nose, it can mean that you're relaxed, or that you are bored, or that you are angry. And it all depends on how much air comes out of your nose, and how fast and what shape your mouth is when you do it, and how you are sitting and what you said just before, and hundreds of other things which are too complicated to work out in a few seconds. The second main reason is that people often talk using metaphors. These are examples of metaphors. I love my socks off. He was the apple of her eye. They had a skeleton in the cupboard. We had a real pig of a day. The dog was stone dead. The word metaphor means carrying something from one place to another, and it comes from Greek words which mean from one place to the other, and which means to carry. And it is when you describe something by using a word for something that it isn't. This means that the word metaphor is a metaphor. I think it should be called a lie, because a pig is not like a day, and people do not have skeletons in their cupboards. And when I try to make a picture of the phrase in my head, it just confuses me, because imagining an apple in someone's eye doesn't have anything to do with liking someone a lot, and it makes you forget what the person was talking about. My name is a metaphor. It means carrying Christ, and it comes from the Greek words, which mean Jesus Christ. And it was the name given to St. Christopher because he carried Jesus Christ across the river. This makes you wonder what he was called before he carried Christ across the river. But he wasn't called anything, because this is an apocryphal story, which means that it is a lie too. My mother used to say that it meant Christopher was a nice name, because it was a story about being kind and helpful. But I do not want my name to mean a story about being kind and helpful. I want my name. It's me. It was 1:12 a.m. when Father arrived at the police station. I did not see him until 1:28 a.m, but I knew he was there because I could hear him. He was shouting, "I want to see my son, and why the hell is he locked up? Of course I'm bloody angry." Then I heard a policeman telling him to calm down. Then I heard nothing for a long while. At 1:28 a.m, a policeman opened the door of the cell and told me that there was someone to see me. I stepped outside. Father was standing in the corridor. He held up his right hand and spread his fingers out like a fan. I held up my left hand and spread my fingers out in a fan, and we made our fingers and thumbs touch each other. We do this because sometimes Father wants me to give me a hug, but I don't like hugging people, so we do this instead, and it means he loves me. Then the policeman told us to follow him down the corridor to another room. In the room was a table and 3 chairs. He told us to sit down on the far side of the table, and he sat down on the other side. There was a tape recorder on the table, and I asked whether I was going to be interviewed, and he was going to record the interview. He said, "I don't think there'll be any need for that." He was an inspector. I could tell, because he wasn't wearing a uniform. He also had a very hairy nose. It looked as if there were 2 very small mice holding his nostrils. This is not a metaphor, it's a simile, which means that it really did look like there were 2 very small mice hiding in his nostrils. And if you make a picture in your head of a man with 2 very small mice holding his nostrils, you will know what the police inspector looked like. And a simile is not a lie, unless it's a bad simile. He said, "I've spoken to your father, and he says that you didn't mean to hit the policeman." I didn't say anything, because this wasn't a question. He said, "Did you mean to hit the policeman?" I said yes. He squeezed his face and said, "But you didn't mean to hurt the policeman." I thought about this and said, "No, I didn't mean to hurt the policeman. I just wanted him to stop touching me." Then he said, "You know that it's wrong to hit a policeman, don't you?" He said, "I do." He was quiet for a few seconds, then he asked, "Did you kill the dog, Christopher?" I said, "I didn't kill the dog." He said, "Do you know that it's wrong to lie to a policeman, and that you can get into a very great deal of trouble if you do?" I said, "Yes." He said, "So, do you know who killed the dog?" I said, "No." He said, "Are you telling the truth?" I said, "Yes, I always tell the truth." And he said, "Right, I'm going to give you a caution." I asked, "Is that going to be on a piece of paper, like a certificate I can keep?" He replied, "No, a caution means that we're going to have to keep a record of what you did, that you hit a policeman, and that it was an accident, and that you didn't mean to hurt the policeman." I said, "But it wasn't an accident." And Father said, "Christopher, please." The policeman closed his mouth and breathed out loudly through his nose and said, "If you get into any more trouble, we will take out this record and see that you've been given a caution, and we will take things much more seriously. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I said that I understood. Then he said that we could go, and he stood up and opened the door, and we walked out into the corridor and back to the front desk, where I picked up my Swiss Army knife and my piece of string and the piece of wooden puzzle and the 3 pellets of rat food for Toby, and my £1.47 and the paperclip and my front door key, which were all in a little plastic bag, and we went out to Father's car, which was parked outside, and we drove home. I do not tell lies. Mother used to say that this was because I was a good person, but it's not because I'm a good person. It's because I can't tell lies. Mother was a small person who smelt nice, and she sometimes wore a fleece with a zip down the front which was pink, and had a tiny label which said Burgess on the left bosom. A lie is when you say something happened which didn't happen. There is only ever one thing which happened at a particular time and a particular place. And there are an infinite number of things which didn't happen at that time and that place. And if I think about something which didn't happen, I start thinking about all the other things which didn't happen. For example, this morning for breakfast I had ready break and some hot raspberry milkshake. But if I say that I actually had shreddies in a mug of tea, but I wouldn't have had shreddies and tea because they are both brown, I start thinking about Cocoa Pops and lemonade and porridge and Dr. Pepper and how I wasn't eating my breakfast in Egypt and there wasn't a rhinoceros in the room, Father wasn't wearing a diving suit and so on, and even writing this makes me feel shaky and scared like I do when I'm standing on the top of a very tall building and there are thousands of houses and cars and people below me, and my head is so full of all those things that I'm afraid I'm going to forget to stand up straight and hang onto the rail and I'm going to fall over and be killed. This is another reason why I don't like proper novels, because there are lies about things which didn't happen and they make me feel shaky and scared. And this is why everything I've written here is true. There were clouds in the sky on the way home, so I couldn't see the Milky Way. I said, I'm sorry, because Father had come to the police station, which was a bad thing. He said, it's okay. I said, I didn't kill the dog. And he said, I know. Then he said, Christopher, you have to stay out of trouble, okay? I said, I didn't know I was going to get into trouble. I like Wellington and I went to say hello to him, but I didn't know someone had killed him. I said, just try and keep your nose out of other people's business. I thought for a little and I said, I'm going to find out who killed Wellington. And Father said, were you listening to what I was saying, Christopher? I said, yes, I was listening to what you're saying, but when someone gets murdered, you have to find out who did it so that they can be punished. And he said, it's a dog, Christopher, a dog. I replied, I think dogs are important too. He said, leave it. And I said, I wonder if the police will find out who killed him and punish the person. Then Father banged the steering wheel with his fist and the car weaved a bit across the dotted line in the middle of the road and he shouted, I said leave it for God's sake! I could tell he was angry because he was shouting. I didn't want to make him angry, so I didn't say anything else until we got home. When we got in through the front door, I went into the kitchen and got a carrot for Toby, and I went upstairs, shut the door of my room, and I let Toby out and gave him the carrot. Then I turned my computer on and played 76 games of Minesweeper, did the expert version in 102 seconds, which was only 3 seconds off my best time, which was 99 seconds. At 2:07 a.m, I decided that I wanted a drink of orange squash before I brushed my teeth and got into bed. So I went downstairs to the kitchen. Father was sitting on the sofa watching snooker on the television and drinking whiskey. There were tears coming out of his eyes. I asked, are you sad about Wellington? He looked at me for a long time and sucked air in through his nose, and he said, yes, Christopher, you could say that. You could very well say that. I decided to leave him alone, because when I'm sad I want to be left alone. So I didn't say anything else. I just went into the kitchen and made my orange squash and took it back upstairs to my room.